Yep. What we discussed in the previous class, guys. Tell me. Yeah. So what we discussed in the previous class, right? We discussed about the Terraform, Terraform installation, Terraform, Terraform init, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, Terraform destroy. And we discussed about the registry dot terraform dot io. So what is this, guys? The documentation. So this is a documentation for Terraform. This is the documentation for the Terraform. You already installed the Terraform, right? We already installed the yesterday. Well, so what you did? No, no, no. Here. 1 second. So guys, tell me, yesterday the Terraform is installed, Terraform installed, Terraform. Yeah. So what is a init, guys? So the main commands, what are the main commands, guys? The main commands are Terraform. So these are the main commands. So what is this? Terraform init. Prepare for your working directory for the other commands. Validate. Check whether the configuration is valid or not. Plan. So the changes required by the current configuration. Apply means create or update the infrastructure. Destroy means destroy the previously created infrastructure. Previously created infrastructure. Here we need to learn the remote Terraform remote state. So what is that, guys? Terraform remote state. Yeah, we already discussed it, right? Terraform, how to download the Terraform. We already download the Terraform and install the Terraform, right? Setting up the so if you want to launch if you want to launch a EC2 instance, definitely we need to create a new AWS account and begin the course. First EC2 instance with the Terraform. So how you can build the Terraform instance through code. What is IAC tool, guys? IAC is a infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as a code. So Terraform installation is very simple. You have to single binary file, download it and use it just. Okay, it supports Windows, Mac, Linux, FreeBSD, OpenBSD and Solaris. So you can download from the terraform.io/downloads. Setting up the lab. Let's start rolling. Okay, first EC2 instance with Terraform. So launching a first EC2. So launching a first EC2 instance via Terraform. So when you want to launch a resources in AWS, there are three important considerations. What are those? So how you will you authenticate with AWS? How you will authenticate with AWS, guys? I gave a one task to you guys. So AWS CLI. How you can authenticate with AWS CLI? Did you done anyone? So secret key and access key. Right? No, no. So how you are connecting in your AWS cloud? You are connecting through aws.console GUI. So did you connected AWS through CLI? No, right? Yeah, you guys can try. The task is how you can connect with the cloud in your cloud AWS through AWS CLI. You can also see tomorrow. Okay. So yeah. So from through Terraform how we are building our infra through Terraform code, IIC infra as a code. So how we can authenticate with that AWS through code, right? So we need to create a user and you can create the access key secret key. Through access key secret key, we can connect through AWS CLI. So how you can connect with AWS with AWS CLI, cloud with AWS CLI, you can connect through access key and secret key only. The same way, so the Terraform wants to connect with the AWS, right? Either CLI or GUI. So AWS cloud, either CLI or GUI. GUI means just in the console. You can go to the aws.console.com, aws.amazon/console. So manually we are connecting through email ID. Okay, then you are manually launching the EC2 instance. I don't want to launch manually. I want to launch through code through code. So what is the IAC tool? IAC is nothing but a infra as a code. We will build the infra as a we can build the infra through code also. Okay, so nowadays as of now you build the OS through manually, but I want to build our provision, guys. These are the terms: provision or build through code. So how you can build through the IAC tool? So I don't know the IAC tool, but IAC tool we can build our provision the AWS EC2 instance. Okay. So whatever it may be, every cloud provider they provided the IAC tools. Every cloud provider they provided the IAC tools. That IAC tool is nothing but a infra as a code tool. AWS provided the CFT cloud formation template. So that is the IAC tool for AWS. ARM Azure. Yes, Azure. ARM templates. ARM templates likewise, but Azure is the only Azure. We can build the infra in the Azure. We can use only ARM. Okay, ARM templates. So if you want to build the infra through AWS, we use CFT, right? So in our company, you are using three clouds. One is GCP, another one is Azure, another one is AWS. So if you want to build the infra through code, definitely we need to learn the each and every IAC tool, their own specific IAC tool. It is difficult to learn, right? Azure, you need ARM, GCP, something, AWS, cloud formation. So we don't want to learn these three. Is there any common tool to support all these cloud providers? Is there any common tool to support? That is a Terraform. Terraform supports number of cloud providers. If you learn the Terraform, it will be easy to build the infra in any cloud. It will build the infra in any cloud. So what is the documentation, guys? The documentation is registry.terraform.io. What is that? Registry.terraform.io. So what is that? Terraform. Who built this Terraform? Who developed the Linux? Hmm. 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 Linus Torvald. So Linus Torvald, same like as a Terraform is built by HashiCorp. Who is HashiCorp? Okay. Yeah. So Terraform supports So many number of providers are a logical abstraction of a upstream API. They are the responsible for understanding API interaction of the exploring resources. It supports AWS, supports Azure, supports Google Cloud Platform, it supports Kubernetes, Alibaba, Oracle Cloud. Okay, so it supports how many providers? 4,724 provides it supports. These all are the, so it will support everything. Okay, understood. This is the documentation. This is the, so for example, which cloud providers we want to use? I want to use AWS. If you click the AWS, so the AWS is the cloud provider. You see, so this is the version we are using in the AWS. So 5.82.8. Okay, this is the latest version. Okay, if you go to the documentation, so this is the documentation. AWS provider. Use the Amazon Web Services provider to interact with the many resources supported by AWS. What is this? Use the Amazon Web Service provider to interact with many resources. Many resources supported by AWS. You must configure the provider with the proper credentials before you can use it. Okay. Use the navigation to left to read the about the available resources. They are currently 1465 resources and 592 data sources available in the provider. So how many resources? 1465. I will tell you what is the resources. Okay. So learn the basic of a Terraform using the provider. The following hands-on is the interact with AWS services, including Lambda, RDS, IAM, following AWS services. So what is that? Terraform. What is the version of Terraform? 0.13 later. So we can use this format. So 12 earlier, we can use this format. So what is the Terraform latest version? 1. Terraform download. So what is the version? 1.10.3. 1.10.3. So 0.13 later, we can use this format. Terraform required provider is AWS and access key secret key. Okay. So provider is AWS, region is US East 1. Okay. I will tell you. So authentication and configuration. How you are authenticated with AWS? How will you authenticate with AWS? Okay. So which region the resource need to be launched? Which resources you want to launch? So resource is nothing but a service. Okay. Remember this. Resource is nothing but a service. What is a service? EC2 is the service. IAM is the service. VPC is the service. You guys remember VPC service resource is nothing but a okay. How will you authenticate with the AWS? From Terraform to AWS, how will you authenticate? Will authenticate by using access key and secret key, right? Access key and secret. You created a user, so through access key and secret key, so we can connect via AWS CLI. Okay. So if you want to connect through console level, AWS console level, what we need? We need a username and password. So if you want to access through programmatic access or something like a AWS CLI access, we need a access key and secret key. For console level, password, right? So which region the resources need to be launched? The resources is nothing but a service. Okay. So VPC or IAM service, IAM is global. Okay. S3, EC2, these all are the service. These services are specific to region. These services are specific to region. Which region? Which region your resources want? Your EC2 instance want to launch? US East, US West, or EMEA region, MR region, or a PAC region, whatever it may be. So first how you will authenticate with the AWS? Through AWS CLI, access key and secret key. Which region, for example, US East 1, which resources you want to launch? EC2 instance. Okay. When you want to launch a resource in AWS, there are three important considerations. These three are the important considerations. How will you authenticate to AWS? Which region the resource need to be launched? Which resources you want to launch? Okay. Yes, next. Yeah. So this is the code. So this is the code. What is the provider? So I want to launch a VM in the Azure. What is the provider? What is the provider? Provider Azure. What is the provider? Azure is the provider. So Azure RM. What is the provider, guys? Azure RM. So Azure RM. So what is the provider for AWS? AWS. I will show you. So so this is for Azure. Azure provider. So what is the provider, guys? The provider Azure RM. Okay, AWS. What is the required provider? AWS. For AWS required provider. For Azure, Azure RM. For Google Cloud, provider is Google. Okay. Provider is Google. Oracle Cloud. What is the provider? OCI. So if you want to launch a instance or something like a instance in the Oracle, what is the provider? OCI is the provider. So if you want to launch a Google GCP, Google is the provider. If you want to launch a AWS, AWS is the provider. If you want to launch a Azure, Azure RM is the provider. Guys, understood? Yeah. So provider is AWS, provider is Azure RM, provider is Google, provider is OCI. Now you understood. Region, we need to select the region. And how you can authenticate with AWS through access key and secret key. So what is this? A resource. Resources are, you see, resources are something like this is the AWS, right? EC2, right? Uh, EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. So what is the resource? Resource is AWS underscore instance. Yeah. What is the resource? AWS underscore instance is the resource. A provider of an AWS EC2 instance resource. This allows instances to be created, updated, and deleted. Instances also support provisioning. Okay. Provider an EC2 instance resource. So this allows instances to be created. It will create the instances. It will modify the instances, update the instances, delete the instances. Okay. So what is that? The resource is AWS underscore instance. If you want to launch a AWS instance, the resource is AWS underscore instance. If you want to launch a S3 bucket, what is that, guys? S3. Okay. So if you want to launch a S3 bucket. What is the resource? AWS underscore S3 underscore bucket. AWS underscore S3 underscore butter. If you want to launch an instance, AWS underscore instance. For instance, AWS underscore. For S3, AWS underscore S3 underscore bucket. Okay. So for example, so you want to launch VPC. Okay. So AWS default VPC. AWS. So what is the resource? AWS underscore triple underscore VPC. So if you want to launch, which resource you want to use? So AWS underscore default underscore VPC. Okay. These are the resources. These are the resources. Okay. AWS. This is Azure. I'm closing this one, guys. Yeah. So what you are trying to launch? EC2. Hmm. So, so what we can use? We can use the resource type AWS underscore instance. AMI, we will provide the AMI instance type equal to T2 micro. So this is the resource block. If you want resource is nothing but a service. Resource is nothing but a service. Okay. So each provider has resources divided into multiple categories. Each provider, who are the providers? AWS, Azure, GCP, Alibaba. These all are the each provider has resources. Each provider has resources divided into multiple categories. Resources require a certain set of argument based on the use case. Resources require set of arguments based on the use case. Okay. So this is the resource. It requires a set of arguments. What are the arguments? So AMI and instance type. AMI and instance time. So few of the arguments are optional. Few of the arguments are required. So it needs to be specified, or if you don't want to specify. So how you can specify, how you don't want to specify. Optional, required. Optional, required. If you see AMI is optional. These resources support the following arguments. AMI optional, 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 optional. Optional. If you specify, if you don't specify. If you are not specifying, it will take the default one. Optional means if you are if you are not providing, it will take the default one. So you see all are optional, 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 optional. So these all are the optional ones. Optional. So required కనిపించిందా? Yeah. So device name is required. If you want to specify this device name, definitely we need to provide the name argument. Argument. Okay. Understood? So few of them are optional, few of them are required. So providers and resources. So Terraform supports multiple providers depending upon type of infrastructure we want to launch. So we have to use appropriate providers accordingly. So initialization, how you can initialize it. So upon adding a provider, it is important to run Terraform init, which it in turn will downloading the plugins associated with the provider. So if you run the init, it will in turn will download the plugins for each provider. Okay. So reusing providers, finishing latest version, installing the HashiCorp, installed the signed HashiCorp Azureum. Terraform has made some changes to the provider dependency selections, resources in the terraform.log.hcl file. Review those changes and commit them to your version control system if they respect changes you intended to make. Terraform was successfully initiated. Initiated means successfully, so communicated with the AWS cloud, whatever it may be. Okay, so these all are the services. Services is nothing but a resources. So resources are the references to the individual services which the provider has to offer. Resources are the references to the individual services. What are the individual services? IAM, VPC, EC2, Route 53, EKS, ECS, RDS, storage, S3. These all are the individual services. Resources are the references to your individual services which the provider has to offer. So example, resource AWS underscore instance, AWS underscore LB, IAM underscore user. So these all are the resources. Resources are the reference to the individual services which the provider has to offer. Which the provider has to offer. Second guys. Where is the document? I want to copy it somewhere here. Mm, mm. So you already know, right? Yeah, one of the great benefits of the Terraform is it supports the thousands of providers. Once you learn the Terraform core concept, you can write the code to the create manage infrastructure across all the providers. So overview of the Terraform certification, you already know, right? Terraform also provides the certifications. So what does this course cover? So we start this course to Terraform about the absolute scratch, and then we move ahead with the advanced topics. So we cover all the topics of a official exam. So so understanding the basics, no need of. So Terraform supports hundreds of platforms like AWS, Azure, GCP, etc. To learn Terraform concept, we have to choose one platform for our testing. For this course, we have to choose an AWS. Okay. So, clarification regarding the AWS platform. Aim this course is a learn core concept of the Terraform and not AWS. So, we use very basic AWS services like virtual machine AWS users to demonstrate and learn the course Terraform concept. The Terraform structure and concepts remain same irrespective of the platform. So we have to hundreds of users from different platforms like Azure. We have completed this course and actively implementing the Terraform for a different platforms. So infrastructure as a code, understanding. There are two ways in which you can create and manage the infrastructure. So manual approach and through automation. What is manual approach? So we can connect to the AWS console, username and password. Then you can manually launch the EC2 instance. The otherwise is through automation. Okay. Work requirement database backup. For example, I was assigned a task to take database backup every day at 10 p.m. and backup had to stored in Amazon S3 storage with appropriate timestamp. So DB backup 1124 SQL. So DB backup 2124 SQL. So same like initially due to the lack of time, I used it to manually take DB backup at 10 p.m. and upload it to the S3. Okay, first take the initiate the backup and upload it to the S3B. This is the manually we are doing. Okay, so learning from this work requirement. If a particular task has been done in a repeatable manner, what is that? EC2 instance creation is a repeatable manner. Okay, infra building is the repeatable manner. It must be automated. It must be automated. Points to note. Depending upon the type of the task, the tool for automation will change. So for example, I want to configure the 100, I want to configure the, I want to install the Java Tomcat on 100 servers. So it's a repeatable tasks on 100 servers. So first we need to log into the one server and install Java, install Tomcat. So that automation is different. That tool is different. After building the infra, I want to install the Java and Tomcat. For that purpose, we can use the different tool. So the tool is a configuration management tool, Ansible. For example, Ansible. So Terraform is only up to, it will support infra building. Infra building. After infra buildings, some other tool. After after infra building, something like we want to use the EKS or something like a Kubernetes, right? So different tools we can use it and automate the process. So this tool is IAC tool is only specific for infra building, infra provisioning. Okay. So depending upon the type of the task, the tool for automation will change. So this is a infra building. So which tool we are using? Terraform. So we want to configure a Java and Tomcat on 100 servers. So that is the different task. For that task, we can use the Ansible is the automation tool. What is configuration management tool? Okay, depending upon the type of the task, the tool for the automation will change. There are wide variety of tools, technologies used to used for the automation like Ansible, CloudFormation, Terraform, Python. Okay, example of a single service, set of resources. For example, virtual machine, database, S3, AWS users. So must be created within exact similar configuration in the dev environment, staging environment, and production environment. So this is the repeatable task. So if we create in the dev environment, we need to create it in the staging environment, we need to create it in the production environment, right? So example of a single service automated way, IAC tool. If you use the IAC tool, you can build the infra and development environment, you can build the infra and staging environment, you can build the infra and production environment. Okay, repeatable task. Basics of infrastructure as a code. Infrastructure as a code is the managing and provisioning of infrastructure to code instead of through manual process. Okay. What is the extension for the Terraform? Dot TF. So learning from this work requirement. So if a particular task has to be done in a repeatable manner, it must be automated. You already done, right? Yeah. So there are benefits of infrastructure as a code. IAC, what is the benefit of IAC tool? So there are several benefits for designing your infrastructure as a code, speed up of the infrastructure management, and low risk of a human errors, and the version control, easy collaboration between teams. Okay. Choosing a right IAC tool. So available tools, there are various types of tools that can allow you to deploy infrastructure as a code, Terraform, CloudFormation, Heat, Ansible, SaltStack, Chef, Puppet, and others. So categories of our tools. The tools are widely divided into two major categories, infrastructure as a code, infrastructure as a orchestration, in configuration management. So infrastructure orchestration purpose, we use the Terraform and CloudFormation, ARM, Azure ARM. Okay. So configuration management. Configuration management tool are primarily used to maintain desired configuration of systems inside the servers. All servers should be have a antivirus installed with the version of 10.2.0. So we can use the Ansible and install it in the all the servers. So infrastructure orchestration. Infrastructure orchestration is primarily used to create and manage infrastructure environments. Example, create 3 servers with 4 GB RAM, 2 vCPUs. Each server should have firewall rule to allow SSH connection from the office APIs. Okay, you can create it. Through Terraform, you can create it. So IAC configuration management also, both are friends. So Terraform, first server.tf. So through Terraform, we can deploy something like we can build the server. Okay, once it is running, so Terraform will inform to Ansible, and Ansible is a install and configuration management tool. So it will install the configurations. How to choose a AAC tool? If your infrastructure going to be a vendor specific in longer term, example AWS. Are you planning to have multi-cloud, hybrid cloud has a based infrastructure? Multi-cloud? Mm. So how well does it integrate with the configuration management tools? So price and support also. Use case one. So what is the use case, guys? So organization is use case one, required of organization one. Organization is going to be based on the AWS for next 25 years. So our environment, our company is using the AWS for next 25 years. Official support is required in case of a team face any issues related to IAC tool or a code itself. They want some kind of GUI interface that supports automatic code generation. So organization is based on hybrid solution. They use VMware for a on-premise setup, Azure, ACP, Azure, AWS, Azure, GCP, and for cloud. Official support is required in case of IAC tool has any issues. Approach one, approach two. So installing, you already know. So Terraform installation Mac, you already know. Choosing IDE for the Terraform, right? So what is the IDE? Terraform code in Notepad, right? So where you write the code, we read the code in the Notepad also. So you can write Terraform code in the Notepad, it will not have any impact. Something like downsides, slower development, limited features if you use the Notepad. Okay. Need of a better software. Need of a better software for coding, writing the coding. So there is a need of better application that allows you to develop the code faster. So we can use the VS Code. What is that, guys? VS Code or Sublime Text or Atom. There are many popular source code editors available in the market. What are the options? So source code editors are Visual Studio Code. What is that, guys? So Visual Studio Code or a Sublime Text. Microsoft tool. But for writing the code, for writing the code purpose, we can code IDE, integrated development environment. If you want to develop the code, if you want to write the code, so where you can write the code, you can write the code in the Notepad or IDE. IDE is nothing but integrated development. If you click the my first ec2.tf, it recognizes it is a Terraform file. It's already plugin is installed. If you forgot anything, if you forgot to close the braces, open braces, or everything will be taken care by the IDE because of it's a integrated development environment. It is already having the plugins. Okay. So advantages supports Windows, Mac, Linux. Windows supports Mac, Linux, supports wide variety of a programming language, many extensions. You see. So if you want to use, we can use the extensions for developing the code. For developing the code. So understanding the basics, extensions are add-ons that allow you to customize and enhance your experience in Visual Studio by adding new feature or integrating the existing tools. So they offer wide range of functionalities related to colors, autocomplete and report, spelling errors, everything. Okay, Terraform extension. What is the Terraform extension? Sesicarp also provided the extension for the Terraform for Visual Studio Code. What is the extension guide? .tf. .tf. Lab. You already set up the AWS authentication and authorization. So how you can authenticate with so before we start working managing environments through Terraform, the first important step is related to authentication and authorization. So what is authentication and authorization? So, through username, secret key and password. So basics of authentication and authorization. Authentication is the process of verifying who a user is, which user you are authenticated with the AWS. So authorization is the process of verifying what they have to access. Authorization and authentication. Example, Alice is a user in AWS with no access to any services. So learning for today's video, Terraform needs access credentials when with relevant permissions to create and manage the environments. That's why we created the user. Okay, Terraform username, password. Okay, access credentials. Depending upon the provider, the type of access credentials would be changed. So if it is AWS, access key and secret key. It is a GitHub, tokens. It is a Kubernetes, kubeconfig file, credential config. It is digital version, tokens. Okay. So first virtual machine through Terraform. So revising the basics of EC2. EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. In short, it's a name of a virtual server that you launch in the AWS. So available regions. Cloud providers offers multiple regions in which so we can create our course. You need to decide the region in which Terraform would create the resources. So virtual machine configuration. A virtual machine would have its own set of configurations. A virtual machine would have its own set of configurations, CPU, memory, storage, and operating system. While creating VM through Terraform, you will need to define these providers and resources. Basics of providers. Terraform supports multiple providers depending upon what type of infrastructure we want to launch. So we have to use appropriate provider accordingly. So launching provider plugins. So provider plugin is lets Terraform to manage external API. So when you want to Terraform in it, plugins required for the provider are automatically downloaded and saved locally .terraform directory. The .terraform directory, it will download the plugins and authenticate the plugins. So resource blocks describes one or more infrastructure objects. You already know, right? So a resource block declares as a resource of a given type, AWS underscore instance with a given local name. A resource type and name together serve as a identifier for the given resource and so must be in a queue. Must be in a queue. So point to note, you can only use the resources that are supported by a specific provider. So in the below example, the provider of Azure is used with the resource of AWS instance. So is it working fine? Provider is Azure. You are trying to launch EC2 instance. It will not support. Okay. So the core concept standard syntax remains similar across all the providers. If you want to learn basics, you should be able to work with all the providers easily. So issues and bugs with the providers. A provider that is managed by HashiCorp does not mean it has no bugs. It can happen that there are instances from your output and thing mentioned in the documentation. You can raise issue with the provider page. So relax and have a meme before proceeding. That stupid work we went done someone mopping a floor and you are gonna walk over it, but you want to them to see how sorry you are be walking over it too. So you make yourself look like you are walking over hot lava. So providers. So providers, maintainers. So there are three primary types of providers in the Terraform. So official providers, partners, and community providers. So official means owned and maintained by HashiCorp. So partner owned and maintained by technology company that maintains direct partnership with HashiCorp. Community owned and maintained by the individual contributors. Providers and namespace. Namespaces are used to help users identify the organization or a publisher responsible for the integration. Okay. So Terraform requires explicit source information for any providers that are not HashiCorp maintained. Using a new syntax in the required provisioner, nested block inside the Terraform configuration block. So if it is not US East, this is not it is a provider maintained, HashiCorp maintained. If it is not HashiCorp maintained, you can use the Terraform required providers. Okay. So learning to destroy resources. If you keep infrastructure running, you will be get charged for it. Hence, it is important for us to also know on how we can delete the infrastructure resources created via Terraform. Because of it is charged for it. Approach one, destroy all. You can use destroy, Terraform destroy allows us to destroy all the resources that are created within the folder. Folder is nothing but a stack, dev stack, QA stack. That's right. So if you click the Terraform destroy on the stack, everything will be destroyed. Your infra will be deleted. right? So before going to deploy, I want to destroy something. So I have a 5 EC2 instances. I don't want to destroy 5 EC2 instances. I want to destroy only 2 EC2 instances instead of 5 EC2. So how you can? So Terraform destroy with the hyphen target option. Hyphen target flag allows us to destroy specific resources. So Terraform destroy hyphen target AWS instance dot my EC2. So what is that? So this is the instance type, instance resources, resource, local resource name. Okay. Yeah, Terraform destroy with the target. Hyphen target option can be used to focus on Terraform's attention on only of a subset of resources. So combination of resource type and a local resource name. What is the resource type? AWS underscore instance. What is the resource name? My EC2. So is AWS underscore AWS underscore instance dot my EC2. My EC2. So we'll tell you desired state and that current state will tomorrow, guys. Okay. Now you understood, right, Kiran? Now you understood about the Terraform, right? Yeah, guys. So we'll continue from tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, guys. There is no class in tomorrow. So tomorrow is a Christmas, right? Kiran wants to celebrate the Christmas. So we will give leave. Sandeep, Kiran, I will give leave for you guys. Okay. Thank you.